Let's take a look at number 7 in section 2.5. We're going to determine the exact value of the given limit. And it's the limit as x approaches -2 of this expression here. We can plug in directly to see the form of the limit. And if you do, of course, up top, you'll square -2, you'll get +4. -14 times -2 is +28. That gives you a total, let's see, that gives you a total of 32, excuse me. 32 minus 32 is 0. And down below, if you do the same thing, I won't go through that, but if you plug in, you'll get 0 as well. So it's indeterminate form, right? So that means we've got work to do, right? And so remember what we do. We start with our equal signs, we write the limit, and then I'm going to factor the numerator. And I'm looking for two numbers whose product is -32 that add to -14 to factor this because the coefficient of x squared is 1. But since I plugged in -2 and got 0, I know x minus a -2 or x plus 2 has to be a factor. That'll help because automatically then I know what has to be. What do I need to multiply to get -32? Well, -16. And notice this works out. You should always check after you factor by foiling out in this case. Of course, first times first gives us x squared, and the last 2 times -16 gives me -32. But make sure the outer, which is -16x, and the inner, which is +2x, combine to give you -14x, and that's the case. So make sure you double check that. Before I factor here, I've got to factor out the GCF. Notice there's a common factor of x that I can factor out, and I do that first. And then what's left can be factored. Again, since -2 plugged in gave me 0, I know x plus 2 is a factor, and then obviously the other factor must be x plus 7. So if you FOIL this out, x plus 2 times x plus 7, you'll get this right here. Okay, so you got to be good at factoring. Once we do that, notice I have a common factor in the numerator and denominator. These are both factors, and when we have common factors, I can pull them out. X plus 2 divided by x plus 2 is just 1. And what's left? X minus 16 divided by x times x plus 7. So now I can take the limit of this. Is this determinant? Is this some expression? Is this function here continuous? It turns out it is. If I plug in -2 for x, I get the following: -18 divided by -10, which simplifies down. Negative divided by negative is positive. 18/10 is 9/5. That's what I would usually write as the answer. I want the exact, when they say exact form, I'm thinking fractions. But in this case, 9/5 as an exact fraction is exactly 1.8. Okay, so I think that's either one of these should be fine in the answer there. Okay, so again, make sure when you're doing these problems that you carefully show your work with the equal signs, the limit sign each time until you plug in directly. There's no limit sign now, notice here at all. You don't need the limit because you have evaluated it. This is the value of the limit. Just as a check, remember, you can always check numerically with this. If we go back to the original expression, I've entered it into my calculator here. And if I go to the table, I can plug in values close to -2, but below, like -1.8, -1.9, -1.99. And you can see the value getting closer and closer to, it looks like 1.8. Same thing for the values that are above -2. Sorry, below -2, excuse me. These values are above -2, excuse me, and these values are below -2. And so getting closer to -2 from below, also we're approaching 1.8. In fact, it looks like it's in between these two. The limit is in between these two values. So we're good with that. We got 1.8, and that seems to be correct. Okay, hope this helps.